The funding for this video is provided by the amazing members of my Patreon. Also contributions from viewers like you. Thank you. Yeah, I started from PBS Kids. What you gonna do? Fight me? Anyway, roll the video. So, recently I have been thinking about how our mainstream media does not do a good job of telling stories about STDs, and they often are told as cautionary tales to be exact. And it made me think of this one quote that Amaya wrote in her essay in Do Not Call Me Sis, that was about Glee. Artie takes it a bit too far and deserves to be called out on it. Honestly, the only time someone did call him out was when he got an STD, and that was more so to make fun of him. So I went to look for a story to compare and contrast, more so looking for a story that handled this subject matter a bit better. And I ended up finding something that was not good and ended up pissing me off and ruining my day. And that is the manga Deep Love. Long story short, the story is about a teenage girl who is a prostitute. We see her journey and struggles with it. She then gets HIV from one of her clients and then dies of AIDS. I hated this story because it felt as if they were punishing the protagonist for being a prostitute, and I did not like how the story portrayed her because she often wasn't likable throughout it. But it also has similar problems to a film that inspired me to make this video in the first place, which is Temptations, Confessions of a Marriage Counselor. A film that Tyler Perry is best known for, pretty known for specifically, but not for good reasons. Hey y'all, it's Harriana and I'm back with another video. Hi, hello, how are you doing? My name is Harriana and welcome to or welcome back to The Pirate Ship, also known as Harry Hook's Pirate Ship. I am the captain, you are not my first mate. I don't got no first mate. Because you want to know why? Bring your ear closer to the speaker so you can hear me clearly. Nobody's worthy of being the first mate. But hi, hello, how are you doing? My name is Harriana and I like to make content based on nostalgia and family and children's entertainment and all the issues that I find within those spaces. I wanted to make this video because of y'all have brought up a lot of good points in my comment section regarding my last video that I had made talking about Tyler Perry. But today we will be talking about the Tyler Perry film Temptation, Confessions of a Marriage Counselor, because y'all had a lot to say about it and I do just as well. But before we go any further, just want to do quick little self-promo, little shameless plug. All apparel on my website until this upcoming Sunday is half off, no code needed. You just add it to the cart and then you'll look, the discount will be there. That's it. And then also me and my friend Amaya Janelle, we had wrote another book together called You Still Cannot Call Me Sis. It is the part 2 to Don't Not Call Me Sis, which is a collection of essays regarding ableism, misogynoir, entertainment industry, and white feminism. If that interests you, and I will be reading parts of that in this video to, give y'all a little bit more look at what's inside, check that out. Deeply appreciate it. Now let's get into the You Still Cannot Call Me Sis quote of the day and then continue on with the video. Still, instead, he chooses to use STDs as punishment. The victims of these storylines are usually Black women in vulnerable positions, unfortunately. So what is Temptation, Confession of a Marriage Counselor about? Long story short, the entire film is just convincing a young married couple that they can work out their problems, because if they don't, this could happen to them. That literally is what the entire movie is. But then we have to go into details about what the fuck is going on in the film. So what is this story that the marriage counselor, who we find out is the main character, Judith, is telling? What the fuck is going on? Judith is married to a man named Bryce. They have been together since like forever. And because of how long they have been together, the spark has seemed to be a bit lost. It's very clear that Bryce is not all that appreciative of what Judith does for him. And the more time goes on, the more Judith becomes unhappy with this relationship, as he isn't giving her that much attention, he's ignoring her, and he is forgetting important details regarding their romance. More time passes on. Judith ends up meeting another man named Harley, and he basically has a crush on her. I don't like this man, even though like I have issues with the way Tyler Perry wrote him. I don't like this guy. Very slimy. Long story short, Judith then cheats on Bryce with Harley because she's unhappy with the relationship, and things just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Next thing you know, Harley gets Judith hooked on cocaine. Moving forward, Harley ends up giving Judith HIV. And we find out that Harley has HIV because his previous partner, who is Karen, played by Miss Brandy Norwood herself, she reveals that she had got it from him. Moving forward, she tells this to the couple that she had contracted HIV, but she wasn't sitting there telling them it was her that caught it. She acted as if she was telling somebody else's story. Then moving forward, Judith goes to the pharmacy. She goes to get her medications, and then next thing you know, we see her ex-husband now, Bryce, with his new wife and kid, and then the movie ends. Whew, okay, where do we begin with the issues with this movie? I know a lot of people have their critiques regarding how Tyler Perry tells Black women and mixed women stories, but this one right here pushes a lot of people's buttons because this is one of the films that he has where the lead does not necessarily get a happy ending. And I'm not sitting here and saying that all movies need to have a happy ending, because that's just not it, but it's the way he portrayed HIV in this film, but also the way that he portrayed her and her now ex-husband was very frustrating, because the movie ends with the husband seeming to get a reward for not cheating on his wife, regardless of how bad he was treating her in the relationship, and she's left lonely, alone, and still having to take her medication because of this mistake that she had made. For one, I really don't like how misogynistic this film is, but I also want to talk about how people want to write off that just because somebody contracts HIV, or if they get an STD in general, that they are not allowed to have like a good life. I really don't like the way that Tyler Perry portrayed Judith to be super lonely and hurt in the end. It feels as though Bryce was not held accountable for any of his actions. Watching this movie, it felt as though Tyler Perry was trying to do everything that he can to try to make Judith unlikable towards the audience. And it wasn't necessarily working, at least for me. Because we see throughout the film, regardless of how Bryce is treating Judith, it's like the movie didn't want to paint him out to be a bad guy at all. It's like the movie wanted us to see that he won in the end. But no. And this film's definition of him winning, and just Tyler Perry's definition of winning in general, because it's an ongoing trope that I see that he likes to use in his movies, it's like a relationship is a prize at the end of it all. It was very much giving, well, since he didn't go out and cheat on you, he's allowed to date, remarry, and then also have a kid. You, on the other hand, don't get any of that. And this movie is so frustrating in general is because our mainstream media already does a bit of a piss poor job regarding STDs. So many popular Black sitcoms in the 90s and 2000s had episodes that centered around HIV. There are episodes of fucking South Park that literally make fun of STDs. And I try to keep a lot of my opinions regarding South Park to myself. It's not my cup of tea, but oftentimes the jokes fall flat. Oftentimes the satire's not good. And this is coming from someone who's a fan of panty and stocking. I can sit here and admit when satire is a hot mess. Because if I'm recalling, Penny and Stocking did have a joke in there regarding STDs. Because one character had asked about getting tested before having sex with someone, and that person was like, whatever. Our mainstream media just doesn't do all that great when it comes to something that is seen as very much taboo. And when I say taboo, it's like people have a difficult time talking about it, along with it constantly being shunned. I remember when they first started teaching us about safe sex and all of those things, by the way, the main thing that they kept pushing in our face was learning about STDs. And while I think it is important to be pushing safe sex practices, don't get me wrong, I feel like we have such a negative view of those who have STDs that it is a bit frustrating when we constantly see this type of media be pushed out in front of us. And I bring up Tyler Perry is because he has this ongoing thing in his work where he constantly wants to bring up STDs, constantly wants to bring up characters catching it when they're making bad choices and this and that and the third. And it all feels the same. But I feel like with Temptation, this is one of the cases where he has done it the worst. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and plug his information in here because I learned a lot from him regarding the subject matter, but his name is King of Reads here on YouTube. I will link his channel down below if you guys are interested in checking that out because I feel as though he can talk about this subject matter better than I can. The movie's ending was even more frustrating than it overall because at the end, both Judith and Bryce are much older than what they were portrayed in the flashbacks. But Judith is played by a completely different actor. That is not Journey Smollett, okay? She's not played by the same person, but Bryce is, and it's obvious that they did him up to look a bit older, but they didn't necessarily want to do the same thing with Judith. Like, that left a badder taste in my mouth than it already did. Because it felt like this movie wanted you to have a giant pity party for her. But it's like it wanted you to feel bad for her instead of understanding her. The entire time this movie is presenting to us, if you do this and that and the third, you'll end up sad, alone, and you'll look completely different than you did years ago. And I just don't like that. While Tyler Perry is free to make the art that he wants, I have stated that numerous times before, who am I to tell somebody what they can and cannot make movies about? But also, people have valid concerns pointing out what he is making. I'm sorry, but y'all are not about to sit here and act as if black people that point out the problems within Tyler Perry's works are jealous of him. We're not jealous of him. We just have valid concerns about the way he goes about certain subject matters. And people have been frustrated with the way Tyler Perry has been telling the subject of AIDS and HIV for years, over a decade. Because Temptation came out over a decade ago. I saw this movie literally in the theaters. And even then, when it came out, numerous people were mad at him and going off about the way he portrayed HIV and how it was completely unacceptable. A lot of the people's main critiques with the film at that time had to do with the way Tyler Perry went about STDs, but also it was a lot of people realizing that there is a pattern in his work, because if we don't see this going on in his films, we see it in his television shows. There's an entire episode about House of Pain, about a young man catching an STD. Also would like to say that this movie was kind of slut-shaming Judith too, just as well. And that more so had to do with the fact that she wasn't satisfied with what her husband was giving her and wanted something more, but he was not compromising. It's very clear that there were numerous problems going on in this relationship, yet he did not want to sit and talk about it with her. And part of the reason nothing got talked through in this movie is because she had such a difficult time just talking to him in the first place. So that goes to show me that their relationship had always been like that. And I'm not sitting here and saying that Judith was completely perfect in the relationship up until the point where she decided to cheat on him, but I am saying that it was pretty clear that she was trying to do everything she could to work with him. The more time passed, it was getting harder and harder to deal with his behavior because of how long she had been putting up with it. If anything, I think Bryce and Judith did need to go to marriage counseling. Ding, 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 like literally the title of the film right there. And it's clear that Judith's failed relationship with Bryce also goes to show you why she wanted to take up this profession in the first place. But then all the way at the end, we see that Judith's only relationship, well, serious relationship, but then again, we saw that the only guy that she ever was truly with was Bryce, was with him. It ended for her and it felt as though she could never try and find love again. And I am so tired of this notion that people have that just because somebody has an STD, that they cannot be in a good and fulfilling relationship. or just have fun in life in general. And I blame a lot of the public for that. And when I say the public, I'm talking about our mainstream media because we tend to shun people who have STDs. I will never forget how much having HIV is shunned in general because I remember that a lot of people in my class at school, they had brought us in to talk to a woman who did contract HIV, and the things people were saying before this woman told her story to us were actually concerning. It's like nobody wanted to take this subject matter seriously until the woman started speaking. And we saw that the way she ended up getting HIV was because her husband, who she was married to for a long time, gave it to her, on top of the fact that he knew he had it and still gave it to her. I'm not surprised why many people didn't necessarily see the problem with the way Tyler Perry portrayed HIV and just STDs in general with this movie, because the general public does not do a good job of having discussions about these things. Do I think we need to be having safe sex practices? Of course. But there is a lot of gray area in between things. Can we stop making everything so black and white, y'all? Because a lot of the people that were on Tyler Perry's side with this film were very much like, yeah, relationships are hard, but you should never cheat. You should never do this and that and the third. And I'm like, y'all are missing the point about why we are mad with what Mr. Perry had done. This whole entire thing about us being mad with him isn't about cheating. It's not even necessarily about STDs to begin with. It is how a lot of y'all be wanting us to put up with a man doing horrible things to us all the time. But the one moment we slip up, the one moment we do something bad, then all of a sudden we bad guy Chun-Li. Tyler Perry likes to push this notion about struggle love in a lot of the movies that he has, because even within Diary of a Mad Black Woman, we see that she ended up going back to her ex-husband who was literally brutalizing her throughout their marriage. And it feels as though Bryce didn't even learn his lesson in the end. We don't even really know if he learned much of anything at all, because it's like this movie wanted to rub into Judith's face that, yeah, he was able to find love again, but you're not because of what you have, and I can't stand it. And it's frustrating because this movie was long as hell, yet that ending was rushed. I'm going to go ahead and end my rant here, as you guys won't hear me ramble on for like another 10 minutes because, oh, not only did that manga upset me, it made me more frustrated with this movie. But y'all, don't read that manga. I don't recommend it whatsoever. I was looking at the reviews of it and everybody was just high praising it. And I was like, is nobody seeing the problem that I'm seeing? But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. That manga just didn't do it for me. If you liked it, okay, if you like this movie, all right, we are all allowed to have our own thoughts and opinions on things. Let me know what y'all thought about all this down below. The book will be linked down below. My shop and all of that will be linked down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will catch y'all on the next one.